Here's myself and Bobby Gomes. This is the penultimate episode for Mlb Dfs. At least, well, I guess I'm not counting the weekend. I suppose there may be a Saturday show. I'm not certain. But yeah, one more to go. Tomorrow night should be a big boy slate. This one is just a 5-gamer. That's why, if you're wondering, hey, why are they not live just yet? Yeah, we're coming out a little bit late because, we got a 5-gamer. Plenty of time to knock that out. So coming on 5:30-ish. It's myself. It's Bobby Gomes, former $1 million winner Bobby. 2/3 of the People's Show on Sunday morning. Bobby, how are things in your world? We were debating a little bit of football pre-show because we were talking about the Packers, and of course that game's going down tonight. The Showdown slate. If you're looking for Showdown content, that'll be on later as well. There's Showdown content on the site for premium members. But yeah, a little bit of Packers, a little bit of Lions, midweek football, and then a 5-gamer as far as baseball tonight. And yeah, we get sidetracked sometimes. Like, oh wait, we should probably just go live and do this thing. Let's bring it to the people. Bobby, how are things in your world? Everything okay? I didn't ask. Is the
fantastic
good as far as the bee sting? Is the bee sting? Your child's all right with the bee? No. I hope.
Am I muted?
No, I hear you. You're good.
You hear me? Oh yeah, everything's great. Honestly, 5 games, like we could talk 30 minutes more Justin Bieber like we did the previous show. I know the chat was really interested. It's getting down to the ending times of MLB, so it's sad to see this MLB season go. But yeah, glad to be here with my guy Mean Dean.
Is it just because of the rhyme scheme? Is that, or it's fun? There's a Twitter thread that says otherwise, Bobby. I'm not sure if you saw or you've been on Twitter. But the whole mean thing, apparently it's not true. It's been debunked. But you could say behind the scenes. I hope don't fully expose, but like I'm a tyrant behind the scenes. Can you confirm that that's true or no?
You're easy on me. I've seen others. I've seen you. There's been some questionable stuff, but for me, you've been fantastic.
Oh my gosh. I wonder who you're talking about. That's so funny you say it like that. It's phrased in a way like there's like an insinuation.
But, no, I'm just creating a narrative that isn't there. Dean's a good guy behind the scenes.
I would have done the same thing. That was well played for sure. What's up, chat? Kindly hit that like button, subscribe, turn on notifications. Shout out to y'all if you're still grinding baseball. 5-gamer going down tonight. And yeah, I've been doing this long enough. I have a lot of tricks in the bag where like if we need to buy time. Somehow, like if Justin Bieber comes up, I'm going to run with it for 10 minutes because otherwise we're really going to be stretching later on in the show. And we talked about it the other day with Roth. We were talking about Cameo. We had a little brief conversation about Cameo. You're aware of Cameo. You know what Cameo is, I assume? Yes?
I know what Cameo is. Yes.
Are you big enough to be on Cameo? Have you been booked for Cameo? Have you done a Cameo before? I'm sure you get all sorts of DMs. I imagine there's a bunch of requests. Is that not the case?
No, not the case for me, but for Roth might be Roth's another issue. Roth could be a Cameo guy.
I really think he could, by the way.
I think he could be too. I'm not lying either. I think he could be too.
I think there's enough people that would just have fun with it, whatever. He would do a Cameo, and we'll see if we're really desperate in need of killing some time. I pulled up some of the athletes on Cameo, and it's like shocking. It's really interesting, like the price of some people compared to other people. It's like, well, wait a second, this guy is distinctly more popular than that guy. Why is he only charging that much? And it's just interesting how they choose their asking price, I suppose. But
they pick their own, right? Like I would imagine they pick their own.
Yeah, I would assume. Yeah, I think that's the case. But yeah, it is kind of weird to just like just pull it up. Well, I don't want to give it away. Maybe we'll talk about it later. When Roth comes on, maybe we'll come on a few minutes early. But again, it's going to be they're going to have plenty of time. It's Roth. I believe it's STL Cards and DerekCarty. Carty's super busy these days, CEO of the Bat and the Blitz. All right, as for tonight's slates, by the way, I said to you pre-show, I go game by game. That's you personally requested game by game. And you just said, I think you responded like, sure. And I'm like, I wanted Bobby to be more excited about this. I think you love game by game.
I'm regretting it now. I feel like I'm regretting it now that we're on the show.
Don't want to do game by game.
Definitely go game by game if you feel like we should go game by game.
No. Don't frame it that way. It's not that if I feel like it. I thought this was your thing. I thought you like it.
I love it. Yeah, I think it's fantastic. I like going game by game. I don't understand why more content isn't game by game. But that's just me. Other people learn differently. It gets very redundant for people, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, it depends how it's delivered, because a lot of times you can just be like, well, The Yankees are playing the Blue Jays. There's an 8.5 total. Luke Weaver's taking on Chris Bassett. And, well, yeah, you can play Aaron Judge. He's pretty good at baseball. And, oh, yeah, the Blue Jays, the top 4 guys are probably the best Blue Jays. Just like, because it just becomes kind of redundant, right, I suppose. But, like, if you could avoid giving that kind of analysis, and I'm not saying that's what you would do. It's very easy to fall in that trap. And also it's a 5-gamer where it's like, if you're making a certain number of lineups, you're kind of going to be playing everything. Like, I don't know.
It's September baseball, so we might fall into that analysis, right? Just throwing it out there.
And then how is that helpful to anybody? It's like, well, you could play. It's like, well, so then, like, I feel like sort of the organic conversation of like focus on the things that are most important tend to be more useful. But as far as tonight, whatever you want to do, man, I'm good to go. Let's
go game by game. Let's go game by game. I think that's the best way. We could start off talking pitching and then just move into game by game. Does that work for you?
Oh, you want to talk overall pitching first and then go game by game? We can do that.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to do it.
So overall pitching is kind of weird tonight. I was on the expert survey today. There are 10 teams, 10 pitchers throwing baseballs. And, this isn't me repackaging what Cheese said, what Dave said, but it happened to work out that he agreed with me. And I think it's also pretty clear, and he also had his 5 guys bit, but he likes his 5 guys. But I think it's very clearly 5 guys in the bucket, 5 guys out of the bucket, 5 guys in the pool, 5 guys get to play with the noodles, and 5 guys, they can just sit there and tan. And they're not getting in my pool. They're not pool worthy. And once you're pool worthy, you're all kind of sort of the same. You're all kind of sort of the same is sort of where that is where I am at. I don't know if you see it any differently. As far as ownership, we're looking at 41% for the Hound for Chris Bassett, 37% for David Peterson. He's the cheapest. Marlins are fully motivated. I saw they had according to Fangraphs, a 69% chance to make the playoffs. It's them and the Cubbies. So both teams that are battling for that NL, the last NL wildcard spot. It's one of those two are going to grab that spot, the Marlins or the Cubs. So Peterson's getting 37%, Luzardo's getting 35%, Gilbert 27%, Montgomery 23%. And that's kind of my cutoff. Like, I think, I don't make enough lineups. So I'm making like 4 lineups tonight. Yarbrough, it's not happening. Stroman, I'm not picking on the Braves, and he's not fully stretched out. This AJ Smith-Schaffner is not very good, at least in a small sample, and I think the Cubs are better to roster as opposed to pick on. Luke Weaver is a no for me, and Chris Flexen, get out of town. I think it's pretty clear as far as which are the best amongst the top 5 pitchers. My personal favorite is Luzardo, but I'm not married to it. Again, the Marlins are fully motivated. They don't push them too hard, but six innings, 95 pitches feels like, very doable. And highest K rate on this slate, lowest Sierra on this slate. It's not an incredible K rate, but somebody's got to be the highest. It's like 27, 28. It's good, but it's not like elite, obviously. But your thoughts? What do you think as far as do you agree that the initial thought of like 5 in the bucket, 5 out of the bucket?
Yeah, so I agree. It's Chris Bassett, Peterson, Luzardo, Gilbert, Montgomery, no particular order. I do think in 150, like, you can extend your pool to like Yarbrough, Luke Weaver. That would be the only 2 that I would consider in 150. In terms of ranking them, I'm with you up top. I think it's Luzardo. Number 2 might be different relative. I was just looking at everyone's expert survey. I like Montgomery too, where I think everyone's going to Peterson or Bassett. For me, I like Montgomery. I know Seattle has to win that game, but I've liked Texas all season. I think Montgomery's in a good spot. 8.8's a good price. He's going to be lower owned relative to the majority of the 5 that we kind of talked about. So I think he's interesting for tournaments. He would be my number 2. 3, possibly. I don't know. Then I'm getting like Bassett, Peterson, Gilbert, I guess. I feel like that's how I would rank them. Do you have any issues with that?
No. I mean, I would have Luzardo number 1. I'm not going to argue with you if you have somebody else number 1. If you want to consider salary, if you want to have Peterson 1, sure, I suppose. Like, the rest of them are all basically the same price. Peterson 7K. All the rest are like high 8s, and Luzardo, Gilbert in the 9s. But yeah, it's pretty matched together. And I think if you even look at the projections, like the median projections, let's go ahead and pull that up as well. And I think it's very similar. Let's see. Median projections, according to MLB Plate IQ, 18 for Luzardo, 17 fantasy points for Bassett, 17 for Gilbert, 16 Montgomery, 15 Peterson. I did a little rounding up and rounding down based on decimals. But yeah, it's really condensed. And the next one is Yarbrough at 11-ish. And he's not 4K, he's 6'3", and he's also a guy that's not going to go, 6 innings unless he's crazy efficient. We're giving him 80 pitches. So, yeah, I mean, however you want to splice up the next grouping, but Luzardo's one, and that's that. And again, it's not that much of a separation from even 5, I don't think.
Yeah. No, I feel the same way. I think it's a pretty cut and dry slate at the pitching position. Analysis like this, we're going to have ton of time to talk Bieber prior to the end of the show, so everyone can kind of get ready for that. We kind of cut right through it, right? I would say in terms of the pitching position.
I think so. Like, I'd like to give better analysis but like, genuinely, honestly, I've looked through it several different ways, and I'm just like, I don't see a big difference, and that's that. Like, it's just, and then you're just trying to force it, and like, I'm not going to try to force it. If you need like a tiebreaker, use ownership, right?
I could say like
be less owned.
I could say, like, I think Peterson's going to be bad chalk at 7K because I think people are just going to, just the way construction is going to be, they're going to try to force Peterson to get these Dodgers. Where I don't know if that's necessarily the route. I don't think you have to do that. I just think you could fall in that trap, and then he's a dud and you're in trouble. That's pretty much how I could see my lineups going if I got too overweight on Peterson.
Aren't the
Mets ready to go home at this point?
They are, yeah, but they've been that's been like an evergreen thought for the Mets. But they're not even like getting their field in shape. But like, just everybody's ready to go home on the New York side for sure. I will say this is a really good strikeout matchup for Peterson. Peterson in the season, 25.7% as far as Ks. This Mets Marlins lineup versus lefties this season is striking out at 26.4%. That is spectacular. The only contact guy is Nick Fortes, and he's batting 8th. So, you're only going to see him twice. If you see him 3 times, somehow you're pitching spectacular, and it doesn't matter. But it's a really, really contactless lineup here for Miami. Soler against lefties has been incredible this season. Probably the best hitter in baseball versus lefties in a small sample. 430 ISO, which is completely insane. If nothing else, it's like on the podium, or it's only the Family Feud board as far as Soler versus lefties. Berger smashed them pretty good too, as has Josh Bell. But Birdie got the lead off. Jazz left on left. They kind of buried. He's in the 7 spot. It's not a great lineup for Miami.
Berger will go yard off Peterson tonight.
Is that a
dong right there, Dean? That's a dong right there. Yep.
We're not even requiring any sort of likes or any sort of gimmicks. We're just going to give it to the people. And
I don't have to do gimmicks, Dean. The chat knows. The chat knows.
Speaking of the chats, let's see. J3, is there any chance of Spidey Bomb cameos? I don't know. I'm not sure if TJ is lurking. That would be he's the keeper of the Spidey Bombs. Do Chops green salad gobbler hitter of the day? And what is that? That's not a thing, right? Chops got like 19 gimmicks. I'm pretty sure it is. I'm a 20th. I'm not aware of the green salad gobbler. I'm going to guess Chop is probably on the Showdown show tonight. I'm guessing he's been doing those with either
I've seen him on those. Kyle. Yeah, they did a good job 2 weeks ago with Squirrel Ship and everything. Very good analysis on that show.
Squirrels, just play 2 backup running backs. It was just amazing. Solo binking a Millie Maker is really, really hard to do. And
I'm doing it tonight, Dean. I'm doing it tonight.
Are you? How many lineups are you running at the Millie?
150. Every time there's a million up top, 150.
So, is it like 40%? It's like 40% up top, right? I assume it is.
I think so. Yeah.
You just don't care about that. Like, you assume you're going to lose, but the one time you hit,
I assume I'm going to win, Dean.
Oh,
I don't know why you wouldn't assume you're going to win if you're playing 150 every time there's a million up top. If you think you're going to lose, you might as well not play.
You've already lost the mental game.
Yeah, you've already lost, right?
You've taught yourself. So of the number of people that max enter the Millie Maker contest, like at 150, it like 90%, 95% lose.
95% lose, but like you can milk your money. That's what I'm saying. Like, if you're doing it correctly, you're not getting scooped every night entering 150. I would imagine, right? Like, that's just my thought process. Like, you're not getting yourself killed to where you're eventually going to have. I don't know. If you're MMEing every night, like MME players know what their return will be, and they can expect at least a win at some point throughout the year, I would say, right?
Yeah, well, it's the old, like, what do you win when you win? What do you win when you're right?
Yeah.
You got to get paid off on that, and you could win 1 out of 20 slates, and you're smashing, right? That's just how that goes sometimes. Kirkwood is in the chat saying he's here to talk music, movies, Bieber, hip hop, etc., or answer season-long questions. But yeah, I'm down. We can answer.
Kirkwood's the biggest season-long guy. I really gotta hand it to Kirkwood. Every Sunday before a lock, he gets those answers to those season-long questions. You send them right over.
He'll just slide into his DMs about 12:50 East Coast time.
Yeah, 12:50 East Coast. That's Kirky's time. That's when he's rolling for season-long.
I do get a few, and I will entertain them on occasion. I make no promises. And like I'm in the RotoGrinders MLB season long league. I'm in the NFL league. I'm in the RotoGrinders NBA league, which is gonna be coming up. I'm in best balls for all sports. It's ridiculous. I get roped into stuff. I have a hard time saying no sometimes, I guess. But yeah, I'm in too many. I'm in a dynasty hockey league. I think I mentioned this before.
Who do you like in dynasty? Do you know who's really the kid Logan Cooley for Arizona?
Wow, look at you.
He is phenomenal, dude. I keep seeing like Spinorama highlights, and dude, that kid is legit. You got to get him on your dynasty hockey league team for sure.
It was this weird thing that happened last year where so like 1 through 3 makes money, and like 4 gets the first pick in the draft the next season, right? So like 2, 3, 4, and 5, they're all jockeying to finish 4. 2 and 3 were tanking to fall down to 4 so they can get Connor Bedard. The number one, the best player in hockey, whatever. He's already been crowned.
I think Bedard and Cooley are going to have something. I'm not going to say it to like this extent. I think they're going to have a Crosby Ovechkin light rivalry, and I think it'll be very good for hockey because Arizona, being that they're like a Sun Belt team. Just like kind of how the
Panthers move, right? Arizona's
they're going to move eventually, yeah, right. Yeah, I would imagine they're playing in a college stadium, right? So.
They're playing like Arizona State, right? Or is Arizona State like a 5,000 arena? Yeah,
there's a ton of really good talent in the NHL, or just like young talent, I would say.
Do you go to games? You go to NHL games on occasion?
I hate the Bruins, Dean. I hate the Bruins.
Oh, you know who beat the Bruins last year? You know who upset them? The 8.
The Panthers.
Yes, Florida Panthers. Yes. It was beautiful.
We were on shows. We talked about it. I was rooting against the Bruins.
I love it. And you hate him mostly because of the parking, or you just don't like the Bruins?
I don't like Don Sweeney. I think he's like the worst GM in the history of hockey. He's so bad. They missed in like the draft that you couldn't miss. Like you could have drafted blindfold, and I forget it was the 2011. They had 3 picks in the first round, and they literally missed on every single one of them. They could have. It was just like incredulous that you could miss on all these picks. And like it was the draft that who's the kid for the Islanders that's unbelievable.
That's a producer Steve question. It's not popping in my head for some reason, but I'm pretty sure he's an Islanders fan.
There was like a bunch of kids in this draft that are just absolute superstars, and they missed it. Every kid they picked with their 3 picks in the first round was complete dust, or ended up being complete dust. So yeah, he should have been fired then, and he's still the GM a decade later.
So we talked pitching, right? Do we want to walk it back and talk game by game as far as our favorite hitters, as far as stacks? Because I mean, look, you've already kind of spoiled it. The Dodgers are they're in Coors Field tonight. They have a 7 total once again. I guess I'm rounding up 6.96 if you want to get all technical, but yeah, Betts, it's a pretty standard lineup for LA as well. Betts, Freeman, Muncy, JD Martinez, Hayward, Chris Taylor, Peralta, Enrique Kike Hernandez, and Austin Barnes. Will Smith is not in there, and there's no Outman, but still, it's pretty solid there for the Dodgers. We're still waiting for Texas and Seattle. 7.5 total in that game. Montgomery versus Gilbert, 2 pretty good pitchers. Also 2 teams that are still motivated. Texas, it's basically inevitable that they're going to make the playoffs. They have like a 99% chance, whatever it is. Basically, everything have to go wrong for them not to make it. Seattle is barely hanging alive. They essentially have to win out. I think they lost last night to Houston, if I'm not mistaken. But first game is New York and Toronto. Bassett versus Weaver. 8.5 is the total. Toronto is a pretty big favorite here, minus 188. But like if Judge keeps hitting 2 homers every single night, like I guess you got to have Judge. You know, I don't know how many lineups you're making, but like how many lineups do you make and you say, you know what, screw it, I'm going to play Aaron Judge, and he's not going to be a huge priority because of, you know, first is going to be Betts, first is going to be Freeman. Acuna probably gets more roster as well. We just got Seattle, by the way. Seattle is Crawford, J-Rod, Suarez, Hernandez, Raleigh, Dylan Moore, France, Haggerty, and Caballero. So Texas is the only thing we are waiting for. Otherwise, we got all the other lineups. Yeah, where are you at as far as the Yankees? And can you fully stack the Yankees here? I don't think I can do it.
No.
But if you want to play Judge, sure, have at it. You can play Stanton. Wells is a fine set, you know, catcher punt, I guess.
So I think if I'm playing 5-man Dodger stacks, I feel like the Yankees will be relatively lower owned based on like the ownership we're seeing Bassett at. So like Judge and Austin Wells really as like 1-2, Austin Wells hitting 4th, Judge in the 2-hole, absolute tier, two dingers last night, 390 ISO on the road. Like he's in, Judge's in a really good spot, and he's going to be lower owned relative to all these other guys in cores that you basically just hit on. Everyone else on this Yankees team, I really have zero interest in. Like I don't want to play Stanton in September at the end of the year when he couldn't run around the bases in like July. So that's not going to happen. Maybe you could play Torres, like Glaber. I think he's fine, but that's pretty much it on the Yankee side. I do think these Blue Jays are another team that you can differentiate Dodger stacks with. Like they're getting Luke Weaver. We all know Luke Weaver. Not the greatest pitcher. He's going to get barreled pretty good.
Not the greatest Weaver.
Not the greatest Weaver. Yeah, exactly. So Springer, Vladdy, like these guys make sense. I guess you could play some Belt and some shit like the main Blue Jays that we always play. Why is Chapman hitting 8th? Like, is there
He's
a reason?
Been terrible. He's just been bad. Yeah, it's not been good. And the thing is, he started off the season, and I was looking at like the advanced stuff, like, and he was smashing the ball. Like he was hitting it so hard. And I'll be honest, I have not looked at how hard he's hitting the ball of late, but I imagine that's fallen off as well because I don't know what happened to the power. The power is gone. Do you want to guess the last time he hit a home run?
No, you can tell me.
8-4 is his last homer.
Wow.
So
yeah, it might be gone. Chapman won me a ton of money 2 years ago. Not so much this year. Couldn't get the Blue Jays right like most people pretty much all summer. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe this is the night Chapman gets out of there in the 8-hole versus Luke Weaver. You know, it's September baseball. He's obviously due. It's been more than a month and a half that he's hit a home run.
Oh man, it's been bad.
Yeah. Outside of that, like I'm not too interested in the Blue Jays. But like I said, they're different. You can use Blue Jays to differentiate your Dodger stacks.
If you are playing like cash games tonight, if you're doing such a thing, Belt is a guy that's got a cash game playable. I think he's got a better price on FanDuel than it is on DK. He's 3.9 on DK. I think he's like 2.9 on FanDuel. Vladdy's just been pretty disappointing this year. Just pulling up Chapman's stuff now. I wanted to see how hard he's been hitting the ball. Yeah, so on the season, his average exit velocity is a 97. Like a barrel percent, 98. Hard hit percent, 100. Like he's the 100th percentile. He's been smashing the ball.
ISO at home. Like his ISO is not terrible at home. It's not like, I don't know. I know you don't like home road splits though.
I mean, why would you just assume that? I think it depends on the park. Like it depends if. Like,
I think we've had this conversation before. You think it's ridiculous, or you're just like, I don't know.
So
I'm a big BVP guy, Dean. Let's get into BVP, batter versus pitcher. See who gets the best BVP tonight. Just to find some deep stuff for September baseball. Batter versus pitcher.
Like it's one of the BVP thing is like, you know, surely some hitters see the ball.
This is 100% a true thing. I don't agree with anyone who thinks otherwise. Just to throw it out there.
I think you're misunderstanding what most people say. Most people say that, like, sure, there are some hitters that see some pitchers better than other pitchers. It just stands to reason. That makes sense. I think most people argue is the sample's not big enough where we know which ones are which, and we can kind of splice through. Well, that one he clearly sees better, and that one he clearly sees worse. Now, if you have a sample of 30 at bats and like the guy's over 30 with 30 strikeouts, he probably doesn't see him very well, right? So, and the other thing is like the pitchers.
Yeah, but if he's not Kang, I understand
evolving.
what you're saying. If I know how to look at it too. Like if he's not Kang and he's putting the ball in play, and he's I get what you're saying. Yeah, it could just be a lot of bad luck. I don't know if you ever played sports. It's like I always hit certain guys better than I hit other people. I would say it just feels that way from my perspective.
Once upon a time, many years ago,
not like I was a great athlete or anything. I'm just saying.
I played a little baseball, and I'm a lefty, and I hated facing lefty pitchers. So in my head, I don't like left on left, but like I forget, obviously, clearly, I'm not I was never a world-class athlete, but certainly left on left for a lot of hitters is not great. So that's what one stupid block I have in my head, but that was just me. Who cares? How I was in the Little League World Series or whatever. By the way, this year Chapman has got a career high 56.3% harder percentage. It's weird. A career high 93.4% exit velocity average as well. It is odd why his numbers are so bad. See,
it's baseball. It's variance. It's like when you're running bad in DFS, Dean. It's variance. That's what you say.
Well, yeah, it's variance when you're running bad
in MLB streets. And you haven't won anything in about 6 months. It's variance. It has nothing to do with you being terrible. It's just variance.
But when you're running good, you're sharp.
You're sharp, yeah.
You can spin it both ways, right? Oh, look how sharp I am. I won this contest. I definitely knew these goofy things were going to happen. That's just, you got to put yourself in, you got to be sharp enough to put yourself in position for the goofy things to work out for you. So final thought as far as Toronto and New York. You didn't sound terribly enthused about New York outside of Judge. Toronto, there were some pieces. But are they one of your top 4 stacks today, Toronto?
No, I think they're both secondary stacks. I would be playing all the stacks on a 5-game slate. So, yeah. And if you're playing 5-man Dodger stacks, you need to differentiate yourself. So why would these teams not be in your pool?
Yeah.
As secondaries.
Depending on how you define secondary.
Them.
How do you define that? Because to me, it's like LA, gap, Atlanta, gap, right? And then Toronto, Chicago, stuff like that. Is that how secondary you have it as well?
Secondary for me is anything that's not like a 5 or a 4-man stack, pretty much. So anything that's a 2 or 3-man.
I believe we just got Texas as far as their lineup. Yeah, Semien, Seager, Lau, Garcia, Young, 2 catchers again. We got Heim and Garver, Leody, Tavares, and Evan Carter just forever in that 9-hole. He's been very good in the 9-hole. Evan Carter, the call-up, some power, some speed. Okay, next game is the Marlins. The Marlins are at New York. Let me check what the Ross weather report was. I didn't see anything earlier today, but at least according to the lineups page, suggesting we should be concerned, but never look at that. See what Roth has to say weather-wise for New York. It's straight yellow. Similar again in New York, but there's at least some moderate rain in the picture. Right now, I expect a start in mostly dry weather. Finish up in some light rain. It's worth revisiting closer to first pitch. Winds are in center. Let's see, coming in 10 miles per hour. It's expected to be a cool night, so not a great night for the bats. Let me see if Weather Edge confirms that. I assume it does. What do we have here as far as Weather Edge? It's a 21-game sample, so whatever. 21-game sample. It's got a slight bump to homers and a slight bump to runs, but I don't really trust that sample. It's 21. That's like a BBP sample, I don't know if we should fully trust it. But, 7.5. David Peterson taking on Jesus Luzardo. Again, the Marlins are fully motivated. The Mets, they're thinking about Mexico or the Bahamas or wherever they're going on vacation. Got their vacation plans for sure. What are we excited about as far as we talked about the pitchers already? I think we like both pitchers. You were talking about Peterson possibly being maybe bad chalk, although he's cheaper. And this Marlins lineup is vulnerable to the strikeout, but again, that's what's leading to him being pretty popular. Soler looks incredible. No matter what the weather is, no matter what the ballpark is against lefties this year, he's been spectacular. But yeah, talk to me about the Marlins. Birdie leading off. He's got some wheels, but not a lot of pop, obviously.
Yeah, Soler is definitely my favorite. Berger's a really good play too. I think they're both at a fair price tag on the slate. I'd probably prefer. I say Soler's my favorite, but the $500 savings on the slate to Berger could go a long way. I already called Berger for the dinger, so I'll just stick with Berger. I think Birdie up top at 3K is fine, and Nick Fortes at 2,700. He's someone that I would consider as well. Jazz is down there at 4.9. He's been absolutely atrocious, it looks like.
He's been injured in and out the whole season, basically, and left on left. So that's why.
Yeah. I might just play the talent in Jazz. Like I would throw him in if I play. I'm really looking at Marlon Sacks as just like 3-mans.
Yeah.
Like
Berger,
secondaries
Soler.
or 2-mans, Berger, Soler. Birdie would be like my favorite cheapie that I could save between him and Fortes, but I think Fortes is fine too. Yeah, they're just secondaries. And on the Mets side, I don't love the Mets ever. We talked about the hitting not being the greatest or them not being in the greatest spot. And obviously, we really like Luzardo. So I don't know. Like, do you really want to build? It's a 5-game slate, so you can make a case if all the ownership's going to go to Luzardo. Like, these are the slates that the double leverage is something that's like worth it, but it's just never worth it for me with the New York Mets, right? Like, they're just, it's a great spot, but they're just going to let you down more often than not. If you
The
did
first
like the
base
Mets,
case is interesting. I'm sorry, I'm going to cut you off, but like first base, just like on the whole, as far as the slate, who do you want first? You want Freddie Freeman. If you can't get Freeman, you want Matt Olson, right? I think Bellinger looks spectacular. We talk about Vladdy. I guess you can play Vladdy, but the polar bear, Pete Alonso, second most homers in the league. We saw Kirkwood and Chad talking about polar bear wanting 50. I mean, I don't know if he wants 50. I guess 50 is cooler than 46, which is what he's currently on. He can homer twice and break the slate at it's a 5-gamer. And if you get 2 homers out of him and the other first baseman are relatively quiet, that is enough to separate you from the field, probably.
So in 150, I like that analysis. I probably would go over on the polar bear, but they're just secondaries for me. Like, I'm not playing 5-mans against Luzardo of the Mets. 337 ISO at home for the polar bear, 423 expected WOBA. I think those are good numbers. Lindor is right behind him. Vientos is 2.7. So if you're trying to stack them up, 3.5, Vientos is actually first base also, so that you can't even really do that.
FanDuel.
Oh, he's first base on FD?
No, on FanDuel, you get a utility spot, so you can make it
on FanDuel, you can do that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm not 5-manning the Mets. I don't believe in double leverage with the Mets team in general. It's just the Mets that I do believe in trying to chase after double leverage when you can. I just don't think this is the spot or the right context for it in terms of trying. I just like Luzardo too much in the slate, but you can do it if you want.
The chat, by the way, is very much into the Packers tonight. Apparently, it seems like loading up the Packers money line. It looks like, or maybe laying a point or two. What are they? 1 or 2 point favorites, something like that. I don't. Do you have any? You were touting Love at pre-show. You like him?
I think he's good. Yeah, I think he's good. I think Jordan Love's good. They did the right thing. He sat behind a generational talent for 4 years. He wasn't thrown in the fire immediately like Justin Fields or Zach Wilson. We talked about this pre-show. I think the way they went about kind of cultivating his talent was the right way. An organization should go about it more. So many of these teams just need to throw guys into the fire. And it's the NFL we're talking about. We're not talking about this league being these kids have to learn on the fly, and they're young kids too. It's an occupation. I think Love's going to be a very good player for a long time in the NFL. He's played well, and he has nothing around him currently. So yeah, I think Love's interesting for the captain spot tonight, for sure.
Yeah, you remember what a dope you were at 20, 22 years old? I don't mean you. I mean the generic you.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
they got to learn fast. There's a lot of pressure involved. They're well compensated, but there's also a lot of pressure going on for sure. Cubbies are in Atlanta. 9.5 is a total. Atlanta's got a total above 5. They're minus 142. Stroman taking on AJ Smith. Shaver. Atlanta just they're waiting for the playoffs to start. They're just chilling. Stroman. What did he throw? How many pitches did he throw last time? It wasn't a lot. I don't expect him to throw more than 70 here. And also a quick hook if needed because Chicago desperate. They got to basically win out. He went 3 innings last time out through 64 pitches. If he's pitching well, he'll stick around. But we're not rostering Stroman anyway, right? Just kind of thinking out loud as far as, who's Atlanta's going to face. I don't think so. Either his pitches doing it.
Olson's the first baseman. I would play the pivot. What do we have for Olson ownership?
Well, that's interesting, right? Earlier in the day, I was really surprised to see the difference between Freeman and Olson because I thought it'd be kind of similar. I want to see if the gap has closed because I know earlier it was like Freeman was well ahead. So Freeman at 13%, Olson at 8%. This, by the way, to be clear, for large field stuff, not like single entry stuff, not cash, obviously, not 3-entry max. But yeah, Olson is at 8%. Alonso at 7. Wait, hold on. You know what? I'm looking at points. What a dope. See, I was a dope at 22, and I'm still a dope. Freeman 25%. Yeah. So this is the weird thing. If you're to trust this, or if it's even close, Olson at 4%, Freeman 25%, Alonso at 3%. Like what? Like I like Freeman as much as the next guy in Coors Field, but you send this out a billion times, and I think it makes a ton of sense to not play Freeman if you're going to get the difference in ownership between these guys. And in this game is one of my favorites more in place is Bellinger. Bellinger at 3-4% against small sample size here, but the dude he's facing, he walks a lot of guys, gives up fly balls, and gives up home runs. And Cody Bellinger's got a lot of power. So, and the ballpark's good too. So if that is the case, I think you're supposed to not play a ton of Freeman tonight, as scary as that may be, right? And if Freeman hits a solo home run and he goes 1 for 5, like you're fine, right? You should be okay. Yeah. You should be able to survive that. If it's 2 home runs, you might be buried. It's over. Forget it. Go to bed.
So I think that's a good way. This would lead me into like basically 3-man Dodger stacks outside of when I'm playing them with a unique secondary. I'm getting a Dodger in every one of my teams. I would make that rule, but I would probably be getting more 3-man Dodgers because I like this Braves team. I like Olson. Obviously, Acuna's the MVP. 6'8" is a very expensive price, but he's Ronald Acuna. I'm sure, like, he broke the slate last night. I'm sure anything can happen. He can definitely his range of outcomes is fine at that price. I like the back end of this Brave stack. Travis d'Arnaud, my favorite MLB player, him and Danny Jansen, my 2 favorite.
You love catchers.
Yeah, I'd definitely be overweight on Travis d'Arnaud tonight. He's just my guy. Michael Harris down there in the 8-hole.
I
like the reverse Braves a ton. Versus Stroman. Like I think they're in a really good spot. And on the other side, like I like the Cubs too. Nico Horner, 5.2. I think that's fine. He'd probably be my favorite Cub. You like Bellinger. I think Bellinger, if you're trying to get away from Freeman, he's another one in the mix. I would prefer Bellinger to the Polar Bear. I would prefer Olson to the Polar Bear. So I think, like you said, but I think the Polar Bear is a good play too. And I think you basically said how strong first base is. Like we can try to get away from Freddie Freeman a little bit. Not to be redundant in your analysis, because
you got to hit first. Like I don't know who it's going to be, but somebody at first is going to hit. Like the talent pool's too good, it's too strong. Somebody's going to get there, and you got to find your way on it. And you probably should spend up. You probably should spend up at first base. And that's why maybe Belt might be a bad idea. I don't know. Like he's got the potential, I suppose. Sure, why not? It's baseball. Anybody can do it. But I think you're probably supposed to spend up on somebody really, really good at first base tonight. I would just mention the Tauchman. Like they've done some pinch hitting there. Chicago is fully motivated to win, and then that's good, but it's also bad because they're also motivated to pinch hit when the situation calls for it. When a lefty comes in, he's probably out of the game, just sort of throwing it out there. There's some pinch hit vulnerability. Master Bueno is another guy. Oh man, did you see the clip? Oh, I can't find it. What was the line? Did you see the clip when he was I'm going to lose it. Forget it. I have to Google it. Maybe we can get producer Steve to play it, but it was a fun little pun when Master Bueno was up and the booth was having a good time with his last name, but we shall probably move on.
I think I have an idea where that's going, Dean. You know?
Yes.
That's why we're team reach around with the Braves tonight, right?
Yes. Head Chopper got a kick out of it for sure. Let me see if I can find that clip on the fly. Dodgers are in Colorado. 11.5 is the total. Chris Flexen versus Ryan Yarbrough. I don't think we're thinking about either one of these pitchers necessarily. I'm not, unless you're doing like crazy, you're running 150 and I guess, sure, maybe, whatever. How much you're prioritizing the Dodgers? The Dodgers are going to be popular. Duh. Everybody else sees this.
Yeah, I'm going to have Dodgers in every one of my lineup. If I had to rank them, Mookie Betts, obviously, Freddie Freeman, JD Martinez, Muncy. Like, I don't know. It's the same Dodgers stack. We kind of played all year. Best offense in baseball outside of the Braves, I would say. Yeah, who are my favorite Dodgers though? I don't know. For me, I'm trying to find cheap Dodgers so I can kind of make different things work. Not many. Hayward.
I would think that Barnes probably sticks around. I just wonder how much pitching they will do because the Dodgers, they really care. I feel like if they give these guys their day off, like Will Smith, earlier in the season, situation calls for it. They give him the hook. Will Smith pinch hits for him because he's clearly a better hitter than Barnes. But I think they just let him play the whole game just because who cares? I think that's my guess. Do you have a thought on that? Whatever pinch hit risk there can be at times, it's nullified or subdued because the game doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I guess that you get the low-owned catcher. Well, not low-owned catcher. He's going to be high-owned, but lowest price catcher. You think he's going to play a full game in cores? He's at the bottom of this order. Yeah, if you want to go to Barnes, I think that's good. A good thought process. You could play the full game just because it's pretty much the end of the season. And why play Will Smith at this point today?
So Carty's going to be on in about 10 minutes or so with Roth and SDL cards. Somebody in chat was saying that the bat is all over the Rockies. Are you all over the Rockies?
I think the Rockies are in play. It's a team in cores on a 5-game slate. I know the Rockies are terrible, but I think we could definitely play some Rockies. Let me just pull up which Rockies that I had. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
Quick. Yeah, Montero, Rogers, Bouchard, pretty much all the ones with the bat are running out there. Tovar. I think those guys are all in play. Nolan Jones is going to be probably one of the lower owned ones, and I feel like he has a good bit of power. So if you want to throw Nolan Jones in there, he's in the outfield 4-7. He might be my favorite Rocky. He's one of the ones he's coming out. I ran 100 lineups just off the bat, and he's one of the ones that are coming out the lowest. So yeah, he'd probably be a guy that I'd have more exposure to than the field.
From
the Rockies.
No Chris Bryant in that lineup as well. I did find the quote that I was looking for, like a child. I was searching for it. I was happy to find the quote in the on the broadcast. And I don't know if we can play the audio. If producer Steve can play it, probably not. Maybe we can. But Steve, can we play the audio of that or no? Is that frowned upon? Is that probably a bad idea?
I don't want to have to sit through another meeting, Dean.
Will go from Johnson to Hand, and the batter will be Mastroboni. That's probably a good thing. Jeff Francoeur's in the other booth.
One more time.
Go from Johnson to Hand, and the batter will be Mastroboni. That's probably a good thing. Jeff Francoeur's in the other booth.
What's the Jeff Francoeur reference?
Will go.
Jeff Francoeur is like a child. So if you have 15 minutes to kill, and I know you do, because you have a child, you probably have no time. But go on YouTube and go to Jeff Francoeur prank. Do you know about this? Do you know about the Jeff Francoeur prank?
I don't, but I used to love Jeff Francoeur as a baseball player when I was a kid. He's a stud, right?
He was on the cover of Sports Illustrated. One time he was considered to be like the next big thing, and he had his moment, right? But he kind of fizzled out. He was on the minor league Braves organization. And everybody in chat do this too. Do this in your own time. It is spectacular. It's well worth it. It's like 10 or 15 minutes. So the team, the organization, they played a prank on Francoeur. He's kind of aloof, I guess, right? He's there, but not really. He's not the most aware person, apparently. They tricked him into telling him that I think it was the pitcher. I can't remember if it was the pitcher or the catcher. I think it was the pitcher that they're deaf, and the entire team, for the entire season, played along with it. And everybody knew it was a bit, and Francoeur had no idea. And they do us reveal. It's spectacular. And he would go to dinner. He would go to dinner with them, and they would tell the waitress,
he's more.
Yeah,
we're teaching my kids sign language, so I know more.
That's awesome. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I know Love because I watch. Is it Love or Sorry? You know, it's Sorry, right? You put the circle on your chest. Sorry.
Oh, I don't know that. It's more for like food stuff. I don't know. My girlfriend knows. She's trying to show him, but yeah, that's interesting that he was at so he went along. That's an unbelievable prank.
Well, he didn't know. It wasn't he went along with it. He just like assumed. What does he do? He just assumed like, okay, this guy's deaf, and then he has a it's a little tricky to communicate with him, and it was spectacular. Like on a pop up, I think it's sort of kind of like that's how it was born. They just let's just pretend like this guy's and like
I feel like that's a joke like me and my friends would do. That's like kind of our humor.
But it went the entire season, and then
that's fine. I think it's interesting. Yeah, I'm with that. Yeah. The fact that it went that long, like you just go as long as possible.
Give it a Google in your own time. Texas takes on Seattle 7.5 is the total. Basically a coin toss. Seattle slight favorite here, -116. Gilbert versus Montgomery. Two pretty good pitchers. I like Gilbert as a pitcher. I don't really like picking on Texas, but thus is the nature of the slate. Montgomery's fine too. Seattle, I think, more vulnerable as far as compiling fantasy points against. But again, we both kind of talked about before. Luzardo's our favorite. I'm okay with either one of these guys. That's my analysis. Your thoughts as far as the pitchers, and then feel free to hit up the rosters as well.
Yeah, I think Montgomery's my second favorite on the slate. I know Seattle has to win this game. 24% K rate at home. It's just I for whatever reason I think he's the one that I want to get to. And I like Texas too. I like Semien. I like Seager. Like Adolis Garcia, Josh Jung. I'm a big Josh Jung guy. Play a ton of him. 228 ISO on the road. Mitch Garver down there, 291 ISO on the road. Good spot for him. Yeah, I know Logan Gilbert's good, but I'm going to be on the other side of this game where I think more people are going to be on Logan Gilbert. I'm going to kind of go to Montgomery and the Texas side, which I think everyone thinks Seattle's just going to win tonight because they have to, which I think is bad analysis.
Yeah, I mean, they had to win last night too. Like they're playing against Houston, and by the way, we talked about that one yesterday. They had a bit of it wouldn't brawl. It's not the right word, but a kerfuffle. I don't know. They had the benches did clear last night. So yeah, those two teams do not seem to like each other going forward. Seattle and Houston. What's Chad up to? Does Chad have anything in their mind as far as the slate? Anything we missed specifically?
Chad's signing a big T on a floaty. Derek,
Is that relevant to something, or why are we talking about that?
I know Kirkwood has a picture of it or something. I've seen it. Like,
didn't he have to edit it out? Like it was showing too much crack.
What happened?
Wasn't it like showing too much? Was there not a crack?
Yeah, he blurred it out. Yeah. He's
Yeah.
naked on the floaty. I'm pretty positive. Maybe Kirk
was he legit naked? Somebody photoshopped that in.
I think he photoshopped it in to make it look like he was naked. I don't think he was actually. It looked like he was at a resort. So, but who knows? Like if Big T might have been at like one of those resorts where things get a little crazy knowing Big T. So who knows? But I just don't. I think Kirkwood might have just kind of photoshopped that in there, knowing Kirky.
Does he have those kind of capabilities? I didn't know he had that ability. He probably has a guy.
There's some. He definitely has a few minions that are able to do that for him. I would say
minions.
Yeah.
All right. Flying Armbar says favorite pitcher on FanDuel cash tournaments cheapies. It's probably going to be the same analysis. I'm my favorite pitcher on FanDuel is my favorite pitcher on DK. Like it's Luzardo. I don't know what your thoughts are. Let's see. Ownership wise, I think it's going to be pretty condensed. It is. Well, Gilbert at 8.9. He's cheaper than Luzardo. I don't love the matchup though. I like the matchup better for Luzardo. Projection wise, Luzardo's got him by a tick or so. Medium projection. If you care about such things. 24% for Luzardo. Gilbert getting 26. Bassett 19%. I prefer Luzardo. I think you can get him pretty easily. Your thoughts, and if not Luzardo, then who?
I think Luzardo is the easy play. You just play Luzardo, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not that it's like an amazing play. It's just that I do think he kind of sort of somewhat separates himself from the field.
I do think that I think Montgomery will probably be the lowest, that people won't go to Montgomery. So he might be the turn. Like we talked about like there being 5 pitchers on the slate that are really in play: Luzardo, Bassett, Gilbert, Peterson, Montgomery. Montgomery's the most expensive. Everyone thinks Seattle's like a lock to win tonight. So if you're playing, I would definitely consider Montgomery a little overweight relative to the field on FD.
I like that call. The pay up to be different. I think that's a good call. And like, yeah, we have him like at 6%. You said it's pretty low, and it's going to be even lower in single entry stuff. Like if that's the kind of world you're talking about, don't do it in cash, obviously, if you're still in the cash streets. But pretty interesting idea to do in single entry. If you want to separate yourself, it's a 5-gamer. That's one way to do so, and you can even play Dodgers. All of a sudden, now you can play some chalky Dodgers, some Braves, not the most expensive ones because we do live in the world of a salary cap. Bobby, I see you're laughing. What's going on in chat?
I'm just catching up on the chat. Yeah.
What did I miss? Give me the bullet points. Is anything worth acknowledging? I know we have crunch time coming in.
Kirk said I called Steve a minion. I don't know who is it. Steve the producer Steve?
No. I assume, is there not a Steve like in your secret chat? Are you in the secret chat?
I'm not in the secret chat, Dean. I'm not in this. You have a better chance of being in the secret chat than me.
I have no chance. I'm not secret chat worthy. And that's what made it very clear to me. I've asked several times, and I'm not going to beg or grovel like they're likes or something like that. You know, you don't want me in, it's fine. It's okay. I'll walk the other way. But I think Kirkwood actually said, he goes, Dean, I don't think you can handle it. That was a funny thing to say.
Kirkwood just sent me a picture, which was definitely something that was, it definitely was meant for the secret chat, but he sent it to me. And yeah, I don't think you could handle it.
Probably don't give it to producer Steve.
Kirky can definitely, I would imagine Kirky's doing all these, like, he can mess around with the picks a little from what he just sent me. So.
Hey, I got a question for you. Roth, we were talking about niceness. Yesterday, Roth used the term Boston nice. He called Kirkwood Boston nice, implying that, like, you know, there's a ceiling for how nice you can be in Boston.
Oh, I think Boston people are very nice in general. It's just they don't like outsiders for whatever reason. But once you're like inside the group, they're very friendly. So, yeah.
Outsiders as far as in the group, or outsiders like people that are not from Boston? Or
just people that are not from Boston, but like they're like hobbits. Like that's the best way to describe people from Boston. They're like Shire folk. Are you familiar with Lord of the Rings, or are you still a fake movie buff?
Come on. No, stop it. Lord of the Rings, like, it's just not for me. I was forced to watch. I lost a bet with Grant. I watched the very first Lord of the Rings. I can't believe there's 6 more hours of this nonsense. There is. But no, I did not enjoy it. Did not do it for me. And I will not watch the next 2 or The Hobbit. What did you reference? Which guy did you mention?
They're just a group of people in the Lord of the Rings, the Shire, the Hobbit.
Yeah. Dean, this has to be your worst take. You have some.
It's pretty embarrassing.
These are bad takes. He's the biggest fake movie buff around. I was listening to the show last night, and he was basically, I forget when, he hasn't seen Space Jam 1. And like, I don't know. And then he's basically like 90s movies are great just because you can do like they're little, they go outside the lines a little bit that you really can't do. They say and do things that you can't kind of hit on now. And Dean's like, oh, it's just nostalgia. Like it's just nostalgia because it's the 90s and you're
wait, Space Jam goes outside the lines.
Dean, have you seen?
No, but there's just not. I'm just saying, 90s. Dean had a bad take on 90s movies. I'm a big 90s movie guy, and it's not nostalgia.
So am I. I think it's probably the best generation for movies. Actually, if you're going to pick a decade, it's probably 90s. But go ahead, Rob. What were you saying?
Have you seen Face Off, Broken Arrow, The Rock? Have you been in that?
They're great movies. No, he doesn't like those movies.
They're all
the fact that he doesn't like Lord of the Rings when he just seems he seems like he would, but he just won't watch it for whatever reason.
I've seen Broken Arrow. It's John Travolta. Of course, I've seen Face Off. Face Off. I can eat a peach for hours. I've seen and Face Off's it's you know what you're signing up for if you sign up for Face Off. It's a ridiculous over the top movie, and like that you bought, so you're perfectly fine with it. So yes, I'm not here. I'm not going to. It's like the Fast and Furious stuff. You know, it's not.
Just making sure you've seen the classics here in this time frame. Mr. Greg says they don't make action movies like that anymore. I know, it's a tragedy. Those movies are great.
They don't make action like Demolition Man or Cliffhanger or something. I don't know why I'm talking Sly Stallone movies or something like that. But yeah, I don't. I did see Space Jam for the very first time in my life yesterday. So there you go. It was fine. If I was 10 years old, I would have loved it. Yes. Yeah. Well, no. Yeah. Yesterday.
Literally yesterday.
Well, yeah. It was part of the show. Like we have to. The movie was assigned to me by producer Steve, and Yeah, before the show, I wanted to watch it, so I watched Space Jam for the very first time.
You could have seen it when you were 10 years old, to be fair.
No, I couldn't have. That's not mathematically possible.
Oh, it's got to be. Space Jam's old.
No, I'm old.
How do you not see Space Jam in the 90s?
I remember. It's funny. I remember my friends were going, and I was invited to go. Like there was like 6 or 7 that went. They're like, "Hey, you want to go?" I'm like, "No, I'm good."
This is the same excuse you had for the Gladiator. You went with your friends and you didn't go to. Yeah.
My one big gripe, by the way, in Space Jam was that they took the powers of Patrick Ewing, Sean Bradley, Charles Barkley, Muggsy Bogues, and Larry Johnson. There's no spacing on that team. There's no threes. There's no spacing. Like it's all 5s and 4s, and then Muggsy. Like how do you expect? No wonder why the Monstars lost. That was my issue with it. I don't know if anybody else was complaining about it, but yeah. You can't hit a 3-pointer. You can't beat Tweety. That's how that goes down. But
well, to be fair, when that movie came out, the 3-point line might not have existed.
That's a good point. That's a really good point by STL Cards.
Yeah.
Really good point.
It was 1996.
The power small forward, the big small forward.
The Bulls were still throwing it. The Bulls were still starting every game by throwing it to Luke Longley in the post at the time.
Luke Longley, that's 6-time world champion. Luke Longley to you, or whatever it is, 4 times, 5 times, whatever it is. I did pull up the cameo stuff, Roth, but I think we've already burned too much time, so maybe we'll have to save it for another day. I had a few. Unless you want, I'm just telling you, you got like 40 minutes, but I don't want to eat all the time that No,
let's save it for tomorrow. It's the final. I think it's the final crunch time of MLB tomorrow as well.
There you go. I had a few interesting ones as far as who's we'll talk about it. Maybe we'll touch on a couple tomorrow if we have time. But
that sounds good.
The chat is clamoring, of course, for some baseball content, football content. Showdown slate is later on tonight. I assume it's Chop, maybe Kyle, maybe Squirrel doing content later on 7:30, 7:45. Check the time. That's why you hit the notifications. That's why you turn on you hit the like button. That's why you do all the things. Hey, Bobby, this is your last baseball show? Yes?
Yeah, it's nice. Thanks. Great season, guys. Good luck, everyone, tonight. Happy to get on tonight.
Yeah, for sure. Bobby, you crushed this season. Looking forward to basketball. I assume you're going to be talking some basketball with us. I'm guessing. Yes, maybe, possibly.
Yeah, I think so. If they put me on the schedule.
And, of course, if nothing else, Sundays going forward at 9:30 in the morning. The Fanduel sponsor crunch time, it starts now. Thanks, Bobby. Good season. Kindly hit that like button as we turn it over to the Fanduel sponsor crunch time. You got DerekCarty, CEO of the Bat and the Blitz. You have STL Cards, the human computer. And you have Kevin Roth. Kevin Roth, who should be on Cameo. He should get booked for cameos. I want to make this happen. This is my new campaign. I want Roth on Cameo. Take it away, Roth.
The trolls would just make me say things that I don't want to say. It wouldn't end well. That's all I know. Hey, welcome to it, ladies and gentlemen. It is Crunch Time, the show sponsored by FanDuel. You know the drill. We've been doing it all season long, 7 days a week. 2 of the sharpest minds in the biz. We got STL Cards in the house. What up, Cards?
Yeah, not much. Fairly quiet day on the baseball ledger, but it's an interesting slate tonight. We got playoff implications as well. I mean, this final weekend, you start to get some shenanigans and teams that are, pretty much out of it, just rolling whatever out there. And the teams that still have something to play for, it's some of these games are pretty important that we have on the slate here tonight. So, if you're just a real life baseball fan, there's some games to keep an eye on tonight, and makes it an interesting DFS slate with a mix of nonsense and, teams that are still trying to win some games.
Yeah, and baseball is kind of a funny sport because I feel like in this situation, in other sports, one team really needs it, one team doesn't. If this is basketball or football, the team that needs it is going to dominate because they're just going to put in more effort. But in baseball, it's you're just swinging a bat. Does wanting it help anymore in baseball? I don't think so.
Well, so kind of the big example of this, if you want to play that angle, is this week's games have meant everything to the Blue Jays. And you've got the Yankees out there throwing, even the other night, Aaron Judge didn't play. So basically a collection of, nobody's at the bottom of their order, and they've played 2 games the last 2 days, and the Blue Jays haven't scored any runs. So, right. To some extent, teams like the Cardinals are just so bad that they still continue to lose, but it's not just a gimme, where the a full strength, Lakers are taking on a team that's tanking. So
exactly.
Yeah, your point has some merit there. It's not like, everybody's just going to run over and dominate. There's always going to be variance in baseball.
Yeah. So that's a little fun. Speaking of a little fun, my guy DerekCarty in the house. What up, Carty?
Not much. How's it going?
It's going pretty good. No complaints here. The weather is mostly quiet. How's this slate looking by your eye?
I think it's looking pretty good. I mean, it's not a full slate. What do we have? 5 games, but there's still, I feel like, a lot to like. I think definitely some ways to get different in a really good way. So I like this slate.
Okay. Well, let me hit you with the weather bomb that you're not going to like. I think it's going to be fine either way. Your best chance for a delay, I thought it was going to be in New York, but based on where the rain is setting up, I think Philly is our best chance of seeing an in-game delay.
That game already started, Roth, so it's not on the main slate.
Then I don't care. Then never mind. I'm not going to hit you with any bad news whatsoever, and we're good. That's it. We got a McDonald's callback from yesterday in the chat. Vibe says, I'm watching Crunch Time, eating Mickey D's. Milkshake machine was actually working. Life is good. That's as good as it gets, man. You got the ice cream machine working at the Mickey D's. No other real weather concerns outside of the games that have already started.
Funny story on that. I don't know. I was being cranky one night or something, and I wasn't in a good mood. And one of my kids just randomly looks at me when I said something and said, "Okay, Grimace." And so now my whole family calls me Grimace. So that's my nickname.
How long has this been going on for?
Oh, probably about a month and a half.
Okay, that's getting there. Yeah, that's getting there to official nickname status. All right, well, we're going to turn that frown upside down here with STL cards. Let's dive into the content side of things. Carty, you want to kind of jump in and tell me what we're looking at pitching-wise?
Yeah, so the top 2 pitchers on the slate are Jesus Luzardo and Logan Gilbert. Luzardo's facing the Mets in Citi Field, and the Mets are, not very good these days. I like Luzardo a lot. On Fanduel, where you can only play one of them, Gilbert is, $800 cheaper. So I'm okay if you want to play Gilbert instead of Luzardo. Seattle has everything in the world to play for here. So it's a spot where, I think he's good. On DraftKings, though, where Luzardo's cheaper, you're definitely playing him in cash games. Like, he's the guy you're locking in. And then you're deciding who to pair him with. You can pair him with Gilbert. I think you can also pair him with Chris Bassett. Or I'm really okay with going with the guy on the other side of the game, David Peterson, for $7K. Peterson he might be the most underrated pitcher in baseball right now. And the matchup is good and the price is low. And in tournaments, he's going to be lower owned than all 3 of those other guys. He projects lower owned than Jordan Montgomery. So I like Peterson a lot in tournaments. I like him a lot in cash games too. After that, things get real gross. I think those 5 are the only ones I'd really be considering tonight.
Okay, easy enough. Cars, I'll kick it over to you now. You in agreement with those 5? Do you have a smaller pool, bigger pool? Where do you land?
Yeah, I mean, you almost can't go with any of the others. You've got pitch count concerns for both of the pitchers in Atlanta, like Stroman back in the rotation, and the Cubs have everything to play for, but he had pitched out of the bullpen for a while, only pitched 3 innings on Sunday whenever he started last weekend. You got a couple of kind of gas cans at the bottom. So your pool really is only going to be those top 5 guys that Carty mentioned. And I'm kind of treating it the same way. I think Luzardo, particularly on DraftKings, is my favorite option. He's 4 of the 5 viable guys have strikeout props of 6.5. He's the only one that's got a little bit of juice on the over. So presuming that, that we think the weather's okay now, not going to be an issue. I'm totally fine with Luzardo. The Marlins could use some innings. They played a doubleheader yesterday. One of their best pitchers going. They still need as many wins as they can get. They're tied with the Cubs for the last wild card spot. So Luzardo is probably the guy I'm prioritizing the most. Bassett is probably the guy that I'm the most underweight on, just because I don't really love the ceiling. I mean, if you want somebody safe, I think I'd rather play Montgomery. I actually like the matchup for a lefty against Seattle, even though Seattle's played better in the second half. I think maybe there is a sneakier ceiling for Montgomery tonight. But Luzardo is my SP1. You can mix and match the others. Peterson is maybe number 3 on my list, but yeah, I'd keep Gilbert in the GPP pool as well.
In GPPs, is Luzardo coming at the highest ownership where there's some benefit to maybe getting off of him for a GPP?
No, I don't. I mean, I don't think so. And I don't have Carty's ownership. I have ours up right now. So we've got Luzardo on DraftKings at 39, Peterson at 38, and Bassett at 37. So really, a night where there's only 5 viable pitchers, that's not enough to get me away from him. Like, gotcha. Bassett is certainly the guy I'll be underweight on. We've got Luzardo at 24 on FanDuel, and let's see. Yeah, nobody else is really. You only obviously get the one pitcher there. We've got Gilbert at 26. Gilbert would be a little more popular on FanDuel because of the price, but yeah, Luzardo's fine. I think even in GPPs, I think where you get different tonight is maybe what you want to do with your bats.
Okay, and you did mention making sure that the weather was okay in New York, and that I think if we see rain in New York, you're talking 10 p.m. or later. So it is almost impossible that would run into your starting pitching. So I think you're fine there. Let's go ahead and talk about some of those bats and some of the stacks. Cards, you mentioned there were a couple gas cans at the bottom, and I'm looking at some of the teams involved, and I think Atlanta may be in one of those games where that sounds nice.
Yeah, well, the chalk of the chalk is the Dodgers in Coors Field against Chris Flexen. So ownership is kind of cool a little bit. I think when I looked earlier, it might still be the case on FanDuel, but like our 5 highest owned guys were all from the Dodgers. So their team total is almost 7 runs. It's 2 runs higher than anybody else. It's certainly, it's tough to ignore the Dodgers in Coors Field, particularly in cash games. You got to get a few of them. It surprises me. You mentioned the Braves. So while they're not necessarily facing a gas can in Stroman, who knows how long he's going to pitch. And it is a little bit weird to me that the Braves are still running out their A-plus lineup. I mean, they've clinched, if they haven't actually clinched, they've mainly, let's see, the Braves have 102 wins. The Dodgers have 98. So I guess the Braves might need one more to clinch home field advantage. No, they haven't, because they have the tiebreaker. So yes, the Braves have clinched the number 1 seed in the National League, but they're still rolling out their A-plus lineup. Acuna got his 70th steal last night. You got Riley, you've got Olsen, you've got Ozuna, all those guys in there. So you always have upside with the Braves. The Dodgers will be a little bit chalkier. I think the Braves are just fine in GPPs as pivots away. Toronto hasn't scored the last 2 nights, but they have a great matchup tonight against Luke Weaver. So I think Toronto's probably right there near the top as well, particularly if you get them at an ownership discount from the top end teams.
Okay, very good. Carty, go ahead and talk through your stacks. Also, it has come to light that you're stingy with the follows on Twitter, huh? Being a little stingy with your Twitter.
Apparently, follows. Steve that said I didn't follow him. I thought I did.
Oh, it's cold out here, man. That's brutal. Rough stuff, Carty. Come on. He's actually a really fun follow because he freaks out all the time about his bets. He loses his mind immediately. He's like, these Mets are garbage. The Phillies are trash.
So I have to interject with this, even though it ended up winning for Steve last night. So I was just scrolling through Twitter and I see a tweet from Steve that says Ranger Suarez is garbage. That's all it said. And so, of course, Ranger Suarez is a pitcher for the Phillies. And I thought, wait a minute, that means he probably bet the Phillies. And the Phillies had clinched the division the night before. And so they were rolling out, basically a garbage lineup plus Bryce Harper. And so I said, Steve, you didn't bet the Phillies the day after they clinched the division, did you? And his response back was, I did bet them. Haven't been paying attention the last week though, and didn't even realize that they had just clinched. So Steve was tilting his own negative EV bet, but then they ended up coming back to win anyway. So Steve got the last laugh on that one.
I'm glad
Good job,
they came
Steve.
back, but yeah. The best, he's one of my favorite Twitter followers just because of the pure chaos and every bet that he places. He at some point will not be happy with it. Okay, anyways, that aside, Carty, give him a follow and let's talk about pitcher.
Stacks, you mean?
Yeah, that's what I mean. You're right. Thank you.
Pretty similar spot as cards. Like it's kind of like pitching where there's a top 5 and then everyone else is like pretty bad. but it's also baseball and it's hitting. And so if you're not playing, I don't think you have to play one of those 5 teams. I think it's fine. Obviously, the Dodgers are the best. The Rockies are great. The Braves are great. The Jays are great. The Cubs are in that mix. Those are your 5. But if you wanted to play a team again, stack the Rangers against Gilbert, you can do something like that on a slate like this, that's small, where you get that leverage, where it's not like any of those top 5 teams are going to be under-owned. So if you just play something completely off the board, I think it's okay tonight.
Okay, fair enough. Let's go ahead and go a little position by position here. We're kind of running on borrowed time, but it's a small slate. So Carty, why don't you start us off with catcher?
Basically, every position is going to be play a Dodger if you're able to. Austin Barnes is the top play on the slate. He's 3K. He projects for the most raw points. You're playing Austin Barnes no matter what. In tournaments, you're going to mix it up with Kirk, Yan Gomes, Austin Wells, Austin Wins, basically the guys from the other 4 good teams. And then you can play Mitch Garver for 4.2K as the most expensive catcher on the slate against Gilbert. But I mean, you're really, again, only doing it because he can hit a home run and you get the leverage.
Yeah. Okay. Cards, anything at catcher you want to add?
Yeah, I do like Wells a good bit for the Yankees hitting cleanup tonight. And I mentioned that Bassett is probably the one top end pitcher that I'll be underweight on. So Wells is the same price as Barnes. I think that's some interesting GPP angle to take at, presumably a little bit lower ownership. But yeah, otherwise that's pretty much it at catcher here.
Okay. How about first base?
All right, so Freeman is going to be the class of the position here tonight. I think he's probably in the mix as one of the top overall spends on the slate. Matt Olson at basically a similar price point is going to be way under owned. So don't hate the pivot if you're spending up to be different to Matt Olson. If you're going a little bit cheaper, I do like Brandon Belt, probably a little bit more than Vlad at the prices. Belt is, kind of in that 3K range. Kevin Biggio is first base eligible on DraftKings and is under 3K. For whatever reason, he continues to hit the middle of the order, but mentioned they haven't scored the last 2 nights. But Luke Weaver is just awful. Basically, he's bounced around several organizations the last few years, hasn't stuck anywhere because he's not any good. It would certainly be a problematic sign if Toronto can't score again tonight. I mean, last night they had to face Michael King 2 nights ago. They had to face Garrett Cole last night. So, at least some excuse for not scoring in those games, but they should score some runs tonight.
Okay, very good. I think that takes us to Carty's thoughts at first.
Pretty similar. Freeman's the top guy if you can get there, but not necessarily a priority since you are going to be limited on Dodgers. I like Vlad the most out of those Jays guys, even considering price, especially on FanDuel. I like Vlad. But Belt is also good. Kevin Biggio on DraftKings is also good. Montero for Colorado at 3.4 on DraftKings is probably my favorite, thriftier guy tonight. I just think he's a pretty good hitter. He's got the platoon advantage against the lefty. He's in Coors. He's hitting 5th. He's relatively inexpensive. So, and he's not like, it's not like he's even going to come in that high owned, I don't think. So I like him quite a bit tonight if you're trying to be a little different.
Okay. How about second?
Mookie Betts is going to be the top guy here, and I do think he is a priority. You find a way to get up to him pretty much on both sites, in cash at least. You have Brendan Rodgers on the opposite side of the game for a lot cheaper, though. And honestly, you can play both of them, especially because Mookie is going to qualify at other positions on both sites. Brendan Rodgers, 3.6 on DK, 2.9 on FanDuel, hitting 3rd. Again, righty against Yarborough. It's kind of self-explanatory. He's one of the actual good hitters on the Rockies. So Rodgers is awesome. And then anything else is just doing something to be different. You can take a shot on a guy like John Birdie for cheap, or Kevin Biggio if you didn't play him at first. He's available here as well. On FanDuel, you have Kike Hernandez at the back of the Dodgers lineup. He qualifies at 6 positions, same as Mookie. But he's cheap, he's good, and I like him.
Okay, excellent. Cards, your thoughts at second?
Yeah, pretty much the same. Obviously, Betts as the high-end play, but if you need salary relief tonight, I do like Rodgers for the reasons Carty mentioned. I like him a good bit better than Birdie if you're trying to go cheap. So not that, I think Birdie is a horrible play, just don't have much of him tonight. I think you get a little bit more ceiling with the Biggios, the Rodgerses of the world, Ozzie Albies again in GPPs. I wouldn't be surprised if Atlanta ends up a little bit less owned than even what we have them, given that, Stroman is at least a reasonably competent pitcher. But I'm a little bit worried about the Cubs here. They've really choked away the games the last 2 nights in absolutely huge spots. And seems like, maybe the playoff pressure is getting to them a little bit. So when you're facing Atlanta, you don't have basically a breathing spot in that lineup. So I like Albies and GPPs as well.
All right. How about third base?
Yeah, third base. Muncy, if you're looking to spend, I think is the top play here. Interesting to see kind of where his ownership, because obviously you can't play Freeman at first and Mookie at second and Muncy at third. You're probably not going to be able to fit all the spendy Dodgers in your lineup. And Muncy just doesn't seem like quite as much of a priority to me as Freeman or Betts. So obviously you're playing him if you're, rolling some Dodgers stacks. You're not fading Muncy completely. But in terms of a priority, if you're trying to power rank which of the top Dodgers to spend on, I don't necessarily know as if he's at the top of the list because you have other guys here. You got Jake Berger hitting third. You've got Chris Taylor. If you're playing on DK, he's 3,900 and projects as possibly the top point per dollar third baseman. He's third base and shortstop and outfield on FanDuel. I don't mind Candelario for the Cubs. He's probably a better play on FanDuel at 3K than he is on DraftKings at 4,400. So you just got options here at third. I really like Berger as a one-off tonight for his power against lefties. So that's third.
Okay. Carty, your thoughts at third base?
I agree about Muncy. He's the top guy, but you're not going to be able to spend on all of the top Dodgers. I like Chris Taylor in the same lineup as a cheaper way to get some Dodgers here. Fill what's kind of a not great third base position. I agree about Berger in tournaments. I think he's great. I think there's definitely potential there. You'll probably get a little bit of leverage. So that's kind of it. Otherwise, obviously Riley, Matt Chapman on FanDuel is really cheap and in a great spot for a home run. So I like him a lot in tournaments.
Okay. How about shortstop?
Mookie and Taylor, who we've both mentioned already, are the top 2 options at shortstop. If you're playing them at other positions or you're trying to do something different, you have Ezequiel Tovar hitting second for the Rockies tonight. He's pretty inexpensive. He's 3-3 on FanDuel. He is 4-1 on DraftKings. And where you don't have Betts or Taylor on DraftKings, Tovar is probably the guy you try to get up to. But you do have Kike Hernandez also in the Dodgers lineup for a little bit cheaper on DraftKings. So one of them looks good. Again, to be different off the board, I think John Birdie is a pretty good cheap way to save. There's always the chance he steals like 3 or 4 bases and scores a couple runs and winds up with like 20 points. And he's cheap and you get a little bit of leverage and there's multiple ways he can score you points. So I like Birdie. Otherwise though, you're mixing in, Swanson, Bichette, even Lindor against Luzardo, I think is fine tonight. Okay.
Cards, your thoughts at the old shortstop position?
Yeah, that's it. I think Lindor and, Dansby, Swanson, Bo Bichette, and GPP is really interesting. We've got all of them kind of around 10% ownership or less. Tovar, if Tovar is the chalkiest guy, I'd probably be underweight there in GPPs just because, it's tough to trust the Rockies offense, even at home. It just hasn't been the same unit this year. Coors can't even save that group at this stage. So, but I like the calls on Lindor, in GPPs as kind of a pivot away. I think in cash games, you go with maybe one of those cheaper options like a Kike or Tovar's even fine in cash. But I think Carty pretty much summed up the position pretty well there.
You get the honor of taking us to the outfield. What are we seeing?
All right. So again, a lot of the Dodgers guys we've mentioned at the other positions, with the exception of JD Martinez, who is certainly fine, though he has been priced up. Again, I just don't think he is quite as much of a priority as the other high-end Dodgers bats. He's fine, but he's 4,500 on FanDuel, 5,700 on DraftKings. So if you can't get him, I wouldn't fret. I'd probably even put him behind Muncy in terms of my kind of interest level. Sean Bouchard for the Rockies is going to be one of the better values of the night, particularly on DraftKings, where that $2,500 salary has some appeal. Seiya Suzuki, Tauchman for the Cubs. I don't mind their outfielders tonight, reasonably priced. Let's see, Ian Happ as well for if you want to if you're rounding out a Cubs stack. I do like Toronto, probably off of Varsho hitting 9th, but Springer leading off I think is fine. And you can always go, we mentioned nothing's crazy on this slate. So even somebody like Julio Rodriguez, Aaron Judge, even though they're facing good pitchers, you can always play them as a one-off and hope they hit a home run on a short slate.
Okay. Carty, your thoughts in the outfield?
Pretty identical. The Dodgers guys are great. Mookie, Chris Taylor, Kike Hernandez, JD Martinez. They're all good. Sean Bouchard on DraftKings from the Colorado side. Nolan Jones, I think, is also very much in play on the Colorado side. I like some of the cheaper Toronto stuff, Springer, Varsho in particular. Otherwise it's kind of, obvious stuff. You can one-off Aaron Judge if you want. You can, one-off Cody Bellinger or something like that. But otherwise, that's kind of the slate.
Very good. The people are going to want some home run picks. That's what they do. Cards, I'm going to start with you. I want 2 names, somebody who's a little chalky, somebody who's a little sneaky. What do you like?
All right. So let's go with Brandon Belt or Kevin Biggio as the sneaky one. I like both of those guys. Let's see. I'm trying to pull up their odds on the fly. So Belt is about plus 400. Biggio is about plus 600. So there's your sneakier ones tonight. And for your chalky, let's see. Let's go with Freeman at plus 350. I think there's about 100 points difference between Freeman and Betts in home run odds, which seems a little weird. So let's go Freeman.
Okay, very good. Carty, you got a few names?
Yeah, top guy overall is Mookie Betts tonight. In terms of someone a little bit sneakier, maybe like Nolan Jones. In terms of sports betting, very little value that the bat sees out there. Most of it was in the early games. The best that it sees is Stanton at plus 500, but it's not like it's showing like great value or anything. It's just kind of minorly positive value.
Okay, very good. We're going to take some QQs. We got about 10 minutes here until lock. Carty, I have a question for you. Your phone has been vibrating. Have you been getting weather alerts from the National Weather Service?
I have not. Sorry.
Okay. I'm curious because I just looked at the latest forecast models in and around like New York, New Jersey, and you might get 15 inches of rain and be completely underwater over the next 36 hours.
Oh my God.
Sounds enjoyable.
Yeah. So
that would be not fun.
So I was looking at 3 different models, and 2 of them are like, you'll get 2 or 3 inches, and that's just crappy weather, but you'll be fine. Or the other model says 15 inches, and you're literally underwater. So
how do you get 15 inches of rain without a hurricane or something?
I don't really know. It is pretty ridiculous. So just stay weather aware if you're in the Northeast, if you're like New York City area, New Jersey area.
Would this be like overnight tonight? Like when would we be underwater?
It would start tonight, like late tonight, and continue all day tomorrow. Like all day.
That
tomorrow.
means you better go buy a boat before you go to sleep.
Yeah.
Seriously.
So just just giving the heads up there to anybody in the area, including my guy Carty. Don't plan on going to a baseball game tomorrow in New York. There is a game tomorrow, and I don't know how I feel about that one at this point. All right. Hey, with that out of the way, let's take some QQs. I'm going to pull up the old RotoGrinders Discord. I also didn't mention this show is sponsored by Fanduel. Get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you bet $5 for new users in Arizona, Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Louisiana, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wyoming. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 and up. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Let's see what we got in the RotoGrinders Discord. B Judge says, Cards, it's hard, he says, to fix LA and Atlanta. So what pitcher would you combine so you can stack those 2 teams? So if you want the best bats, you want the Dodgers and Atlanta, what 2 pitchers would you go with on DK to make that happen if you want the bats?
Well, I mean, Peterson definitely, because he's only 7K. I mean, you'd almost have to go like Peterson and Bassett, and you're going to have to play like somebody at the bottom end of that lineup because there's no pitching combination that can save you if you're trying to get, all the expensive bats from both of those teams. You haven't been able to do that all season unless there's like a 4K pitcher. And I'm not playing Ryan Yarbrough. I mean, I suppose some people might go for that, but outside, you got to play like one of the 8K guys in Peterson, really.
Okay. More questions. FanDuel GPP. Carty, I'm coming to you. Bravos. Oh, that means Braves. Bravos or Cubs? Braves or Cubs? You're muted. You got the mute button happening there.
I do. I like the Braves a little bit more, but I think they're both fine.
Okay, great. Pinch hit risk, Carty. This is a you question for the Blue Jays. And he did like 10 S's. That's just why I said it that way.
Let me pull that up. We've got Kevin Biggio, the most at 20%, Belt at 15. Everyone else is under 10.
Okay, great. We got Dean's official dongs in the chat. This is from the one, the only Dean Shabelson, the 90s movie hater, Dean. Number 1, Cody Bellinger. Number 2, Ian Happ. Number 3, Jaime Candelario as your third Dean dong. And Dean, you didn't mention The Rock when I said the 90s movies. You didn't specify if you had seen The Rock. If you hadn't, that is unforgivable. Absolutely unforgivable. The Rock is just, it's a 10 out of 10er. Hopefully you've seen that one. Let's see what else we got. Derek says, Roth, my parents are traveling. Are you serious about possible 15 inches of rain? I really am. Like most models still just say 2 to 3 inches, but this latest model.
So how do you go from 2 to 3 to 15?
It's basically just, are storms going to be moving, or will storms set up in one spot and just rain there all day long? And this one model thinks that's what's going to happen.
We used to have a rule at the office. There was always a guy who would freak out about the snow, and he would always come in and, clamor about how much it was going to snow. And so our internal rule was you take whatever he says that it's going to snow and divide it by 3. Yes. And that's an accurate forecast. So that model must just be like him. And it's saying 15 inches of rain, so you got to divide that by 3, so it's only going to be 5.
That's fair. And there is one thing that people do all the time. If you say like, oh, there's going to be 6 to 12 inches of snow, everyone only looks at it's 12. No one ever remembers
it's a
anything
foot of snow.
Before.
Yeah,
it's a foot of snow. Or no matter what you say, they only look at the high end.
So
then when it comes in on the
worker, that's 2 feet of snow.
Yeah, but then it comes in on the low end, and everyone's like, "You were wrong." You're like, no, that was I said 3 to 6 inches. It was 3. That is correct. Anyways, all right. What else do we got here? More QQs, baseball related. FanDuel, complete Miami or Dodger stacks. Carty, Soler, or Chris Taylor?
Chris Taylor's the better play. He's also going to be higher owned.
Okay. Hang on. Has Dean seen the movie The Rock? Oh, he watched it the first time 6 months ago. Yeah, you're just missing out. I don't know how you could go your whole life without seeing that excellent, excellent flick. Here we go. Anybody look at football content? Anybody? Did we look at anything? Anyone feel prepared for that?
I was preparing for baseball. Football becomes after the baseball.
Yeah, sorry. We're not ready for that.
It's a pretty important game though. So it'll be a fun one.
Here we go. J Sam says on FanDuel cards where it's kind of tough to stack Dodgers. Is it wild to completely fade them in GPPs for Braves bats with the ownership discrepancy so wide and Stroman coming off IL?
Yeah, no, that's not a horrible process. Especially in tournaments on a 5-game slate, anytime you get a team that's going to be as popular as the Dodgers are tonight, even if they score 6 and hit 1 homer, right, it's probably not going to kill you. So I don't think that's a horrible thought process at all.
Okay, great. Carty, I am going to read Rocky Raccoon's question as worded. I have no idea what any of it means. Good luck. QQ, Ratatasker Patrol. I've got a sneaky little city walk stack going with 2 5% owned guys. Should I run Kike at shortstop or Arcia for the extra leverage? DKGPP.
Read that for me one more time.
Basically, should I run Kike at short or Arcia for the extra leverage? Is the crux
What
of the
was
question.
the rest of his lineup, though? That depends on the leverage.
I've got a sneaky little City Walk stack going with 2 5% on guys.
I don't know what that means either.
I don't know what City Walk.
It's all I got, man. That's
City
all I got.
Walk was the name of the Chinese restaurant in South Park. I don't know.
Oh,
Denver.
well,
He's
then-
got Colorado. He's got a Colorado stack. I pieced it together.
Yeah, now this seems racist. Now we're moving on.
All right.
All right. Tom says best DK cash pitchers, Carty. Your 2 favorite pitchers on cash. Where are you going?
It's definitely Luzardo, and I think you can make a case for Gilbert, Bassett, or Peterson. I probably like Peterson.
Okay, great. Here we go. DK GPP cards, Blackman, Soler, or Betts Bouchard.
It'll be a little chalkier, but I got to go with the second one there.
Okay. Here we go. Best FanDuel cards. I'm making you work. FanDuel, $2,500 or below. I assume it's util because you didn't specify.
All right. I need to stall for 60 seconds because I got to load. All right, I'm back. I'm here.
Okay.
I had
All right.
DraftKings loaded in my lineup HQ. So 2,500 or less.
2,500 or less on FanDuel util.
Birdie is probably the chalk answer here. He's 24. I probably like Kevin Biggio a little bit more, and it's pretty thin down there. Lots of guys hitting 8th or 9th. So, yeah, Biggio or Birdie.
Okay, great. Fernando Rodney, hit him with the arrow, says 3v3, Carty, Bassett, Soler, Muncy, or Monty Martinez, Berger.
Bassett, Soler, Muncy, or
Monty Martinez, Berger.
I think I like Bassett, Soler, Muncy.
Okay, good. Rocky Raccoon clarifying it was not a racist. I didn't know. I was just avoiding it. I was just being careful. Don't blame me. I'm being careful. The show's sponsored here. Let's see. Rukin Verde says, I'm scared now that Carty, parentheses, the bat, loves Peterson because one of my 2 lineups has a Marlins 5-man stack and a large field GPP. Are we throwing our money away to have a Marlins 5-man stack and a large field GPP, guys?
I wouldn't say you're throwing it away, but I don't like it tonight in particular.
Cards?
It's okay. You can feel free to disagree with Carty if you want to. Some people really enjoy that. It's not the end of the world. But yeah, I'm not on the Marlins tonight either. But it's a 5-game slate.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, guess what? We've hit lock. I think this is probably going to be both of your last shows here talking some baseball.
I'm on Saturday. We
You're on
are
Saturday.
Finishing on the weekend.
There you go. All right. Cards will be back. Carty likely will not be. So, Carty, you want to say your goodbyes? It's been a heck of a season here.
Yeah, it's been a great season. Thank you guys. Chat, you've kept things entertaining. I love it. I'm excited to keep it going for football. If you're watching the Blitz show, or if you're in the Discord, I'm always around. But otherwise, I'll be back next baseball season.
Hey, I've got a question for you. And by the way, nice little exit. During baseball season, there were situations where the odds were just wrong on some of these bets, like guys coming back from injury and the pitching odds were set on them to go 6 innings when they were only going to get 50 pitches. Does that happen in football? Do you see scenarios where like, this is just the wrong line, or is that not as common in football?
Not as common, mostly because we don't have something like pitch counts. Like, obviously there's edge in betting football props, but there's not like a direct kind of equivalent to that.
Okay. Just curious. I don't know. Maybe snap counts, but I guess that's more well known. Okay. All right. Well, just curious on that one. All right. Make sure you're following the Bat and the Blitz here as we close out baseball and continue rolling into football. So for Carty, for Cards, for our wonderful production crew, always working hard behind the scenes, guys, we appreciate you. We love it. And we will catch you tomorrow. Make sure to stay tuned because we got a whole nother football show coming up. You have been crunched.